now I have the pleasure of introducing our breakfast keynote speaker. Reggie Love is a senior advisor at Apollo Global Management. Reggie's responsibilities include supporting and developing strategy for human capital, public engagement, and DE&I initiatives. Reggie previously served as partner on RUN Transatlantic EG from 2012 to 2019, an international financial holding company with interests in the financial services, logistics, energy, industrial, and beer sectors in the United States, Latin America, and Europe. The group, via its portfolio companies, encompasses assets under management and revenues of over $14 billion, and that's billion with a B, dollars. Mr. Love's work at the firm focused on financial services and energy investments. Prior to joining Transatlantic, Reggie served at the White House as personal aide to President Barack Obama from 2009 to 2011, where he was responsible for assisting with the coordination and completion of the president's daily schedule, as well as coordinating with other White House offices to set up long and medium-range planning. Love moved to the District of Columbia in 2006 to work for then-Senator Obama after short stints in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Love is a graduate of Duke University and holds an MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and is the author of the New York Times bestseller, Power Forward, My Presidential Education, which is a collection of stories and principles learned during his time working for President Obama and being a captain for the all-time most winning NCAA coach, Mike Krzyzewski, Love also serves on the boards of Cox Media Group, Blade Air Mobility, National Summer Learning Association, Center for Environmental Farming Systems, Organizing for Action, Military Bowl Committee, Teamworks, and the New Renaissance. Ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please give a warm welcome to Reggie Love. That's because you're a beautiful person. That's what we do.
Oh, man. Well, that was a kind introduction. You know, no one cheered when she said Coach K. I always say when I come to North Carolina, I can never talk about Duke as much as I like. But first and foremost, congratulations. This 18th annual Black Summit event that is going on today is absolutely stellar. Chairman and Congressman Foushee and Courtney, Katisha, and the entire team, you guys have done an amazing job. And honestly, like, I believe that the work that you guys are doing is the foundation and the bedrock for what allows democracy to continue to grow and to continue to evolve. So thank you for doing that. And obviously the sponsors and Duke Energy and all the folks who put their resources and their dollars to fund that work. It's super important. Don't let it go unnoticed. And we see you and we know that those things, they're the most important things to make the motor run. And for those of you who have not supported the org, you know, financially but can, you should consider being a partner. And then the public servants in the room, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's hard, and I think we just heard from Mr. Bass all the different things that we're trying to solve for and how complicated those issues are. Sometimes it feels like we don't have enough time. We don't have enough resources. We're not getting the impact or the results we want to see right then and there. But I just want to say to you all, thank you for being steadfast. Thank you for being committed. Thank you for bringing the passion and love to the jobs that you do every day, because without our voices at those tables, those problems that affect our communities the most, we will not be able to come up with policies that will solve them the most effectively. And then I'll just, I live here in North Carolina, I live out in Apex, but I still attend my church virtually in DC. Dr. Howard John Wesley of Alfred Baptistry, he sends his regards. And when I think about my own faith, I think about this specific quote, which is the core to being a public servant. I will risk my own individual privilege for the protection of others. I just want you guys to make sure you heard that. I will risk my own privilege for the protection of others. And I know this has been a long morning. Has everyone met everyone? I know people are networking. Do you guys want to take like 30 seconds just to say hi to your neighbors? Has everyone got a chance to say hello? All right. Okay. Well, I want to just start with some of the pillars. Healthcare, crime and justice, environmental justice, and political effectiveness. The work that we do on those things are so critical because when we think about our people and we think about our communities, we need resources not only at the community level, but also within those individual families and able to solve a lot of those issues. And a lot of you guys already know that. Like, you guys know the data on economic opportunity and economic mobility in North Carolina, right? Like, compared to the northern states, economic mobility in the South is far lower than that of the North, and specifically in North Carolina, we have some of the worst economic mobility statistics in the nation. Cities like Charlotte, Winston-Salem, and Greensboro are leaving some of our poorest residents behind, despite the overall economic growth that the state continues to have. Access to health care, and I want to just give a round of applause on this specific point, because without the work that the North Carolina Alliance has been able to do, we would not have created the expansion for Medicaid. And that's over 600,000 additional people that will have access to care that would not have. And access to health care, it's a state issue, but it disproportionately affects our people the most. And then if you guys have not seen the Carolina Racial Equity Dashboard, I don't know if Secretary Sanders is here today from the Department of Commerce. They've done just a great job making public data available. If you've not seen the dashboard, please go and check out the website. It's super important, and repurpose the information, become familiar with it yourself. It talks about the disparities in household incomes between black and white here in the state. It talks about how the unemployment rates disproportionately affect our people throughout the state more than others. And most importantly, when we go and when we're look, I know we've got a lot of issues. I got to go pick up diapers, and I got to go get groceries today myself. And we've all got a lot of things that are going on that are impacting us, but we've got to know the story of what's happening throughout our entire state when we think about what we are willing to sacrifice and work for in order to help make folks, in order to give folks a better opportunity than what they have today. So why am I here today? Obviously we've talked about a lot of issues around inclusion and a lot of issues around how we as a community can work together to drive for more impact and more change. And And so I'm hoping that some of the lessons that I've learned and some of the stories that I've experienced may help you guys, be a little bit more inspired and hopefully take pride and continue to take pride and show that the little things matter. And sometimes we do these hard jobs. We're assigned these tough tasks. We don't feel like we're bending the arc all the time, but I want to remind you that, we've got to continue to put little dents into the arc every day. And we all have a part to play in doing that. So as Congressman Foushee mentioned, I played basketball at Duke. I was fortunate enough to work for the first African-American president, Barack Obama. And look, I'd say, like, from college, and I know everyone's not Duke fans here, but I think I did learn. Thank you, good. But there are a couple things that I did learn while on that campus that I do think translates to the culture and the mindset that it takes to participate and to work within our political system every day. First lesson learned, so I did play for Coach K, but I also played Duke football. So I played 4 years for Duke. I was a wide receiver, started for 4 years, played, 80 snaps a game for 4 years. And in my first 2 seasons playing at Duke, we lost 11 games in the first year and 11 games in the second year. And so for those of you who are not familiar with the game of football, that's every game in the season for 2 years. And so people are like, why does that matter? Like, you want to talk about losing. And the point is not about winning and losing. The point is about preparing and working and the correlation between fruit being born. I think sometimes, especially with younger generations, we get very caught up in the fact that we think that we're going to have immediate outcomes and immediate gratification in the work that we do. But the general point of view is that winning doesn't happen the day you show up. Winning takes years. I know that this is the 20th anniversary for this organization, and my assumption is that there's a lot of winning that has happened, but there are probably some losses that have probably happened along the way, and there's a lot more work that has to happen between now and the next election and our next Senate race, our next governor's race, in order for us to continue to be in a position to have a chance to win. And someone made the point earlier about the infighting, and like, you learn a lot about yourself and you learn a lot about the people around you when you have not won or you've not seen that moment where you've been validated. And you have to show up every day and prepare and work as if you did win. It's very hard, and I think that's the best lesson that I learned from playing football. And then I think there's another thing about culture that I learned playing basketball. So, when I was in college, we didn't have devices, so you wanted to know what happened in a game that wasn't on TV. You would pick up the newspaper and you would look at the stat column, right? And so you flip to the back, there'd be a little table, and in the table of, the Durham Herald or the Raleigh Observer or Charlotte Observer, you'd see, kind of like, every person's name on the team that played. And if you didn't play, your name didn't show up. And then you'd see probably like 7 or 8 columns. And in those columns, you'd see minutes played, points scored, rebounds, blocks, steals, turnovers. Like, pretty basic. And from general wisdom's point of view, like, those in theory are the most important things that determine the outcome of the game. So I'm 18 years old. I show up to Cameron Indoor Stadium. I finished my first practice as a freshman. 2001. And on the, you come into the locker room and there's like a board on the wall. And on this board, there's something that looks like a stats column from a newspaper, but there's like another 30 columns on the chart. And it would count how many times you dove on the floor, how many times you set a screen, how many times you set a screen that got someone a shot, how many times you didn't take a shot and you passed it to someone else and they passed it and that person made a shot, how many times you deflected a ball. The list of things that Coach K tracked while I played for him was remarkable because it was foreign to me. I didn't know all these things existed, and he called them efficiency points. And so at the end of the game, you could be the most efficient player and rank highest in efficiency points and never take a shot, never score a basket. And the reason that I bring that up is because that the small things matter. The small things matter, and if you want people to make winning plays all of the time, then we have to recognize those winning plays, we have to track those winning plays, and we have to continue to inspire the people on our teams and the people in our communities to continue to make those winning plays. Because all of those things matter. It's not about who wrote the piece of legislation. It's not about who made the three-pointer at the buzzer. It's about what did we do collectively in order to have a culture, in order to have an outcome that we as a team and as a community can be proud of. And I'd say that some of these things translate to politics a lot because, one, campaigns are long. And when we look at campaigns, they're not often a ton of data points that show or validate that the thing that we are doing is working. I remember during 2008, one of the things that we tracked, which people did not track at the time, was how many small dollar donations do we have? Everyone wanted to know, like, when people put out their FEC filings, they would say, we've got this many dollars, so much money. And one of the things that we started to highlight during the 2008 campaign was how many total donors do we have? And we would, $50, $100, $25, because we felt like if someone makes $1,500 in a month and they're willing to give us $20, that person probably has a higher level of propensity to take action and to talk to their neighbors and do more for the cause and the effort. And, nowadays, that's like a thing that everyone tracks. Everyone's tracking small dollar donations. This is 2006. This is before Bernie. This is before Trump. This is before all the things. Small dollar donations. Conventional wisdom changed in 2007 because the small things matter. And Barack Obama knew that the small things mattered, and he knew that the individual voice of all the people of all the communities mattered. And I didn't know that I was learning that when I was at Duke, but it somehow all came together. And then I'd say, like, general lessons learned. I think the biggest one is that people have to feel seen. So this week I was in California. I was at a conference speaking to teachers. And it was sort of a national conference about teachers that are focused on underrepresented communities that have, high concentration of diverse students and low-income students. And Irvin Scott, who used to run the Gates Foundation, he said this. He said that people have to seen, feel, and heard. They have to seen, feel, and heard. And that is not just state legislators or executives or whomever. Like, people have to feel seen and heard. And it's hard to do it unless you're willing to listen. In order for people to feel seen and to feel heard, we have to take the time to make sure that we understand what their challenges are and what things are making their life harder, even if we can't solve them, even if we don't have an answer for it, we have to take the time to be able to effectively articulate that we know what these challenges are. And then I think, like, change is a hard thing. And sometimes, like, the hardest thing about change is that we've got to admit that maybe someone else got it wrong, or maybe we even got it wrong. That the process that we had, or the process that has been put in place, is not working. And it's not a negative thing, because we're all a little fallible. And how do we have conversations about the things that we want to change while also not alienating some of the people that may have had those ideas? Because it's hard to be fallible, right? Because sometimes we're just doing the best that we can do with the information that we have at the time that we make the decision. I think there's a great quote. If you guys have not read The Audacity of Hope, Barack Obama writes a quote, and it's from the chapter in the Constitution. And this is an understanding that there is fallibility is the reason we have to participate. The quote is, "The framework of our Constitution can organize the way by which we argue about our future. It challenges us to examine our motives and our interests constantly, and suggests that both our individual and collective judgments are at once legitimate and highly fallible at the same time." And I'll leave you guys with a couple stories in terms of what I kind of experienced and learned over the years from working in the White House. So 2009, January, Barack Obama is inaugurated. It's one of the most impactful days. Some of you may have even been there. Washington, D.C., very cold. And the next day, he is president of the United States. I'm in my office, just outside of the Oval Office, and I'm all over the place. I'm getting calls, emails, meeting people for the first time, who does what, where, when, how. And it's about 11 o'clock in the day. It's the first day in the White House. First day as the first African-American president. He comes into my office and he says, "Hey, Reggie, man, yesterday was crazy." He goes, "I don't think I saw your parents." And I said, "Well, sir, they were there. They came. Thank you so much. They came to the inauguration. They came to the parade." And he goes, "Yeah, but I didn't get to actually say hello to them." And I said, "Well, look, like, my mom and I had been in a fight. This is like a 20-year fight over tickets. Like, I have X amount of tickets, and she is like X plus 10 on tickets. And, since I was 18 years old." And Barack Obama says, "Well, look, I don't care that you're mad. I'd like to see your parents." And I said, "Sir, you don't understand." And he goes, "Look, I'm the leader of the free world. Bring your parents to the Oval Office. Thank you." So I figure out how to get them waved in. They come in. It's my mom, my dad. The president spends 5 minutes with them, says, "Hey, crazy ride. Your son's been great, blah, 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 blah." Take a photo, and they go off. I escort my parents out. Whole day continues to go on. He comes back into my office later in the day. He kind of shuts the door and he says, "Look, was that so hard?" And I said to him, I was like, "Sir," and before I can even say "you don't understand," and he goes, "Look, Reggie, let me tell you why you don't understand." He said, "You never know how long you have with the people that you love. So you should never miss the opportunity to appreciate them." He said, "I lost my mom at a really young age, and I would give nothing more than to have the opportunity." And so this is what he's telling me. His first day as president, he's like, teaching and preaching to me about this specific topic, which indicates the type of person that he is and how lucky I am to have had someone to care and to communicate those messages. I'd share that message with you because I say never miss an opportunity to appreciate and show love to the people that you love and the people that love you. And then I'll wrap with a really good story that I love, and I think it really embodies a lot of the work that you guys do in this room today, a lot of the work that you will continue to do, and I also, everyone realizes this because it looks like we're a seasoned group here. Is that like it wasn't like a certain thing that Barack Obama was going to be president. Like I have to remind people this all the time. Like he was president, but there was like a time where people were like, "Hey man, you should go home." Like that was like real. And so story goes back to circa 2007. You've got your primary states, right? So you've got Iowa, you've got New Hampshire, you got Nevada, you got South Carolina. And you're sort of splitting all the time between those 4 states, occasionally going out to bigger states to raise money. So in Charleston, 2007, at a legislative dinner, Charleston, South Carolina, some state legislature comes over and introduces himself, and he says, "Look, I'm Barack Obama, I'm running, I'd love your support." And she says, "Look, I'll give you my support if you come to my hometown of Greenwood, South Carolina." And so he says, "Sure, I'll come to Greenwood." So he looks at me, he makes a note, we're going to go to Greenwood. I immediately say, Greenwood's like 2 hours from everywhere. 2 hours from Charlotte, 2 hours from Columbia, 3 hours from Charleston. I mean, it's far from everywhere. So fast forward 2 weeks, we're in Greenville, and we're getting in the car, and we're headed to Greenwood. And it's a cold, rainy day, and he's like, "Whose idea was it to go to Greenwood, South Carolina?" And I was like, well, sir, it was your idea. But, look, you need the support. You need early support. You need to lock in this legislature. It's important. So we drive and we drive. There's like a bad story in the New York Times. He's now in a bad mood. He's like giving me a hard time because he mentions to me that Paul Newman had died. And I was like, "Oh, the salad dressing guy?" And he was like, "No, not the salad dressing guy." He was like, "I'm in the car with this child who doesn't know who Paul Newman is." I know his movies now, by the way. But when I was 22, I didn't know I didn't know who was, Cat on a Tin Roof. Wasn't in my Netflix account. So we finally get to Greenwood, South Carolina. And I'm assuming, has anyone ever been to Greenwood? Maybe someone has actually been to Greenwood here. All right, so great, perfect. So you guys know Greenwood. So we get to Greenwood, it's a rec center, it's a small group, and he's kind of, he's not in a great mood, but he's a candidate, so he's like doing his thing. He's like shaking hands, "How you doing? What do you do? I'm Barack Obama, I would love your support," yada, yada, yada. And finally, you hear a voice in the room. Small voice goes, "Fired up?" And he looks around, he doesn't see anybody. Someone says, "Ready to go." And someone says, "Fired up?" Everyone else says, "Fired up." And he sees this woman. This woman's named Edith Childs. She's probably 70 years old. She's moonlights as a private eye. She's got her church hat on. And she's the woman in the town of Greenwood that's known for going around chanting, "Fired up." And people say, "Fired up." And they say, "Ready to go." And he's like, "I'm kind of being upstaged here." And eventually, he sort of looks over to me, and he looks over to the rest of the staff, and he says, he's like, I feel kind of fired up. He says, I feel like I'm ready to go. And so for a year and a half, Barack Obama tells the story of Edith Childs throughout his campaign. And the point that he meant everyone to hear was that your voice matters. Our voices matter all the time, even when we think they do not, even when people try to tell us that they do not, even when people don't want to hear our voice. Our voice matters. And so I just have a question for you guys this morning. Are you fired up? Anybody? Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Fired up? Ready to go? All right, well, let's go change the state and let's go change the country.